Hey, Redheads.
I'm Adrienne.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we're really excited because today we're talking about the redhead lifestyle. Stephanie and I always say red hair is more than a color, it's a lifestyle. So we're really going to talk about how it is to be a redhead and all the things that come with it, like the redhead jokes, sometimes the bullying.
And the questions that every redhead has probably heard.
And even we want to talk about women on TV and how it's really changed the landscape of redheads and the whole platform, which is really exciting. So we'll talk about that. And we have a really gorgeous, super inspiring, hilarious guest today, Julie Klausner. You guys probably know her from Difficult People. And we're really excited to just talk with her and hear what she has to say about being a redhead.
So first, let's talk about redhead jokes, Adrienne, and
oh my God,
what every redhead has heard. I know me personally, I have gotten maybe 10 times in the last several months, are you a redhead? Is your hair naturally red? From over here, it looks brown.
Well, because if you guys know Stephanie, her hair is she's definitely 100% a redhead.
Yeah, thank you. Hands in the air emoji.
She's really a redhead, but sometimes in the summertime it browns out, or in the wintertime it browns out. It depends. And so she does glosses and stuff.
I do, but I think a lot of redheads probably have heard that. I do use color depositing shampoos. I've never tried henna, which is on my list, and I do at-home hair glosses. I just feel it's not that it's not enough. It's just I do it, and then a couple days later, it fades because it's not a permanent dye, which I don't want a permanent dye. But you really can't win.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes Stephanie hates that people are like, "Are you a redhead?" But she's such a redhead, and she has such beautiful freckles. So the thing is, myself, Adrienne, I've never dyed my hair, and recently, now that I'm in my early 30s. I've been getting freckles like more than ever.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a few white hairs.
I am getting some white hairs. And we're going to seriously have to do an episode just about red hair and how it goes. Literally, my hair is just turning in sections, like little pieces of white.
I picked a lot out the other day and she was very upset. But I do want to make a note. Our grandmother on our dad's side, who we dedicated our beauty book to, she went white pretty early on in her life, right?
Yeah. And I have honestly, I have had white hairs coming in since I was in high school, but now it's like in prominent places, like in my part or on my side, the sides of my hair.
Well, you can start using a color depositing shampoo, maybe.
I know.
I got a few.
I know. And I think that's one of our most asked questions is people's hair is really becoming faded or it's browning out. And so if you head to howtobearedhead.com, and we always make sure you can search, but if you search, you can just put in color depositing shampoo or hair fading, and you'll be able to get all the information that you need in terms of the brands we love and how many times to do it and what to do.
And I think when it comes to going back to redhead jokes, so Adrienne and I, if you don't know our story, we grew up in a really small Catholic school in Providence, Rhode Island. Shout out to all the 401 listeners.
Hey.
But our teachers would call us Big and Little Red. And looking back, I think that I think they kind of hurt my feelings. Did they hurt yours?
Well, yeah, because then everyone else is saying that. Everyone else is calling you Big Red and Little Red. And then it's not no one wants to really be called that. And I think now that I'm older, I kind of laugh about it. But when you're younger and you're trying to fit in and then the teacher's pointing you out, I really think it wasn't malicious or anything.
No, it wasn't. I think it's because we were the token redheads I graduated, my 8th grade class was 20 kids and I was by far the fairest skin and redhead.
Yeah. And so I think it takes a process and to even know how to be a redhead. And that's how we came up with how to be a redhead, because it was just Stephanie and I alone, basically, in this environment of beautiful Italian and
which makes me bring up the point. Do you remember prom when I had to call you and you had to meet me in the Nordstrom bathroom to redo my makeup.
Oh my God. I think that was the start of How to Be a Redhead. I really do. And that was what, that was 2008?
2000. No, I graduated high school in 07. So that was 05. You were a senior in high school. We're 2 years apart, everyone. We're not twins.
I know.
But so this is a situation that happened. Two of my best friends, one's Portuguese, one's Italian, they made appointments at, I think, the Bobbi Brown makeup counter. And I joined because it was right before prom and I wanted to get my makeup done by a professional makeup artist. So I go, the makeup artist asks me what color my dress was. It was hot pink, which I think is a great flattering color on redheads if done right. So she didn't ask me really anything that I wanted for my makeup, but I really didn't know. You know, I was like 14, 15 years old. Well, let's just say the end result was pink eyeshadow all the way up to my eyebrows.
Yeah.
And then she used this really, really light brown mascara that just did not compliment me at all.
We're black mascara lovers.
Yeah.
We always have been.
And then the foundation she used on my face, it literally, she hid every single freckle, looked so caked on. So anyway, I had to call Adrienne and she had to meet me at the Nordstrom bathroom and redo it all. And I had to buy makeup. And I think the makeup artist was looking at me as if to be like, why is she buying all this makeup? Her makeup's done. But anyway, that was a really low point in my beauty life.
We have a video that we uploaded to YouTube, and it was talking about a specific palette that we had in our H2 bar box. And if you've been following us for a while, you know that we have this beauty box called the H2 bar box that sends it out monthly to all of our beautiful Redhead subscribers. Anyway, there was this wonderful palette that we had in, and we had pink in it. And when we were testing the products months and months and months ago, Stephanie said, I'm so nervous to have this palette in the box because redheads are going to feel like maybe pink isn't good for them, or maybe like because of this. And we talked about the story that Stephanie had in this Nordstrom bathroom. Like, remember the pink that she used? And I said, I know, but we to this day use pink. And why not put it into the palette and say that you can use it as a blush, you can use it as an eyeshadow. So if you head to our YouTube, you can see these cool videos we did with these palettes. But redheads can wear pink, but the secret is to blend it with really warm, neutral shades. And so I think this was like the birth of How to Be a Redhead, and like the whole lifestyle of being a redhead is like knowing how to do certain things to be your best self. And for us, it's always been, you know, that we always had to know what to do. And it hasn't always been easy.
No, it hasn't. It's definitely been trial and error. For example, I probably should have gone to the makeup artist there that day and told her exactly what I wanted, maybe showed her some inspirational photos. But I mean, we didn't have social media or iPhones, so I was really out of luck.
And honestly, talking about you know, getting your makeup done at that time, that was 2005. There weren't any really big celebrity redheads like there are now to look up to and to say, wait, did you see Jessica Chastain with her red lipstick on the red carpet last week? I want to emulate that look. And I think a lot of makeup artists now who are working at these beauty bars and things, they look at these redheads and they're like, oh, if I ever have a redhead client come in, I would love to do this look on her. And I think that's really, really changed how redheads, one, go about their makeup, two, go about their look. I think, you know, for instance, talking about pink, Stephanie and I were always told you shouldn't wear pink. We wore pink anyway. We
or
love
red.
It. Right. And you can wear all these colors, just your makeup has to be a certain way in order to make your red hair stand out even more and, you know, do all those certain things. And I think now, like, even Stephanie and I were talking about Sharp Objects on HBO. And we were saying how beautiful Amy Adams is. And I really feel like
she's gorgeous.
I know. 10, 15 years ago, there wouldn't have been a redhead on a main screen like that. It was Julianne Moore, who was just about, I remember I loved her then, but she wasn't as famous as she is now.
No.
And I feel like even her looks are getting more daring in terms of makeup.
Well, even so, I think with this HBO show, it's so cool to tune in on a Sunday night and watch her when a lot of redhead celebrities that we love, Adrienne and myself, we talk about, are more on the movie aspect, I think,
right,
and not the TV
TV.
show. I think it's awesome. Netflix has so many shows out right now that show redhead actresses, new redhead actresses too. So I think it's really amazing to see that redheads are getting to be not even in shows, but actually starring in. Like, I think
Right.
Amy Adams looks gorgeous in Sharp Objects. She doesn't wear a lot of makeup because of her role. She can't,
Right.
you know, it's not really her character. But I think her hair looks so gorgeous.
It does.
Those like flowy, effortless locks. So I think it's really amazing. And especially, I don't have cable, neither does Adrienne, but we do get basic channels, and
We have HBO and Showtime.
yeah, and Netflix and Hulu
We don't
and
live under a
Amazon
rock.
Prime. No, we don't. And I love Twitter. Sometimes, you guys, I'll say Twitter, which is my Rhode Island accent coming out. So if I say that or add R's where A's should be or vice versa, it's just who I am. But I think it's really cool when we are watching TV to see all the redheads on commercials.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. And I think a study came out a few years ago, we've written about it, where a lot of commercials do have redheads because redheads are kind of a selling point. Red hair is very vibrant. It's recognizable. It's noticeable. And after the commercial, a lot of people will remember a redhead.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool to see. And I get really excited when I see a redhead on a TV commercial.
Well, I think too, it's like we'll definitely probably do an entire episode on this, but Stephanie went blonde for many years because she hated her red hair. And sometimes I'm wondering if we had the redhead celebrities we have now, who are such good examples, if Stephanie would have thought it was cool to be a redhead and maybe wouldn't have dyed her hair. What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think I would have dyed it. I think it was
So you don't think you would have dyed it? I thought you meant that you would have dyed it anyway.
Oh, no. I would not have dyed it.
Yeah, probably not.
Right. But I think the only person, I'm trying to think, when we were younger, Titanic was our favorite movie, and
Kate
Grease.
Winslet.
And Kate Winslet was a redhead in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I didn't relate to her being a redhead. And also I was finding myself where I didn't really love my hair. Obviously, I dyed it for 7+ years.
And I think like when we started How to Be a Redhead in 2011, we had this idea. Like Christina Hendricks was on Mad Men.
Yeah,
Redheads.
but that was more in college.
No, I know, but I think that's why we ended up starting How to Be a Redhead, because we were like, well, great, all these redhead celebrities are coming about. Jessica Chastain wasn't as big as she is now. And
no, she wasn't, even though, and in The Help, the first movie that she
wore a wig.
She was a blonde.
Yeah.
So So I think, and also we didn't really love country music. And I know Reba McEntire she is amazing. But when I talk to a few redheads that are my age, they always say to me, oh my God, growing up, didn't you just love Reba? But we didn't.
Says that?
A couple people I know. I've met.
Ever said that to me?
Yeah, I know a couple girls.
I loved Reba too.
I know a couple girls that have said to me, oh my God, Reba growing up. And I remember when our mom would put on country music, Adrienne and I would scream at her to turn it off. Remember B101?
No.
Yeah, we would say Mom and pull over because she would just blare country music.
That was aggressive.
And we wanted like 92.3, remember?
92.3, yeah.
I remember they're all the radio stations. So I think now, we can all say as redheads that they are flaunting on the red carpet. Mm-hmm. They are shining in magazines. They're on social media. They're just making a name for themselves, all these celebrities. And I think it's really great for redheads in general. And I think it's good for the younger generation now too, especially with all the social media and everything out there. A lot of these celebrities too are super empowering and super confident and really sending out great messages for redheads and non-redheads, young and old. But I think it's great.
I don't know. Shall we talk about our guest and how amazing she is? Talking about how I think that she's truly a woman ahead of her time. And I think that she's also a great example of someone who's just authentically herself. And I love her so much. I think she's so great.
Yeah. So shortly, we're going to be calling in Julie Klausner. And we She is amazing. So she's the author, comedian, podcaster. She had a podcast years ago.
Way ahead of her time. I told you.
Way ahead.
So we're going to have to talk to her about that.
She's a writer. She's widely known for co-creating, writing, starring in the Hulu sitcom Difficult People, alongside Billy Eichner.
Yeah, isn't he funny?
Amazing. He is so funny.
He's so funny.
He's like a Ross in Friends, but
he is.
Right?
But like 2018.
Yeah.
And a little different. But he's so funny.
He reminds me a lot of the guy from Crashing. A little bit?
A little bit, but not as nerdy. He's more like in your face New York, which I love.
Yeah. And if you didn't know, Difficult People's executive producers, Amy Poehler, which she's amazing. So her podcast, How Was Your Week, was called one of the few essential podcasts by the New York Times. And if you were at the Rocket Like a Redhead event in 2013 in New York City, it really does. You may also remember Julie and her hilarious How Was Your Week crew who covered the beauty event. So we're so excited to have her on.
I know, because Amy Poehler, I mean, think about someone who is so funny. She said about Julie, read everything Julie Klausner writes and listen to everything Julie Klausner says. She's hilarious, wise, and smarter than you. I adore her. That's why we're so excited to talk
I want
about
Amy to say that about me.
I know, me too, right? So that's why I think today's conversation with her is going to be so fun, because I think that we have to listen to Amy Poehler's advice and soak in everything that Julie has to say. So let's get her on.
The H2 Bar Box, a monthly beauty subscription box for redheads. Each box is worth $80 plus, and each product is redhead friendly approved.
Head to h2barbox.com to subscribe and use code podcast to receive 20% off. So much better.
Hello.
Hey, Julie. We know that you're really busy, Julie, so we appreciate you coming on.
Oh, you're being very kind. I am not busy lately at all, but I'm always happy to make time for you, whether or not I am or aren't.
I love your Instagram. Both of us do so much.
Oh,
and
great.
Your cat. You have one cat, right?
Oh my God. He's such a spoiled prince.
he's so beautiful though.
I know, he really thank you. He's very handsome.
Oh, well, we were gonna just start asking questions. Are you cool with that?
I'm ready. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. First of all, we were talking before this because we did a little intro about you. And
right.
We were talking about how you're literally like, you did a podcast way before, like you were way ahead of your time with the podcast. So
yes, I was way ahead of my time.
Can you tell our audience, how did you get into a podcast?
Well, I had been doing guest appearances for years on my friend Tom Sharpling's radio show on WFMU. And his show really preceded the podcast thing. Like, it was a radio show and then it was also a podcast. And I liked nothing more than going on his show and being his guest and, kind of like just chatting and being funny with my funny friend. And then one day, about, I guess it was like 8 or 9 years ago, Patton Oswalt just tweeted, because he had sent me really nice emails after I'd been on Tom's show, and he said, he was like, "You're so funny on that show." And I was like, "Oh my God, thanks. That's the best compliment, because it's my favorite thing to do." And then he tweeted randomly, like, "Why doesn't, Julie Klausner have her own podcast or radio show?" He just like publicly tweeted that. And I was like, oh, I've been, shamed into starting one. And so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, if I was going to do one, what would I do? And then at the time, I was on deadline for like my second book. I was supposed to write this young adult book. So what I did is I made a reservation at this hotel, like at the end of, like, I think it was like past New Haven. It was in Connecticut, and it was like on an icy, like, winter storm. And I borrowed my parents' car, and I packed the car with like all these this is related, I promise. I packed it with all these like these old journals, and I was like, I'm gonna check into this hotel and I'm not gonna check out until my book is finished. And I got there, and everybody at the hotel was like, there's a winter storm coming, like,
wow.
Just so you know, you might not be able to check out for like 5 days. And I was like, got it. And I got back in the car, and I was like, fuck that. I'm not staying in like this icy town for an indefinite amount of time like The Shining. And while I drove back to the city, I was listening to Mark Maron's show. I was listening to WTF, and it was the episode that he had Gallagher on. And I just remember everybody being like, this episode is so crazy. And while I was listening to it, it just sort of inadvertently occurred to me, like, oh, I could do this. Like, he has like 15 minutes of like, you know, a monologue at the top of the show. And I could do that. And I could do like an interview with someone. And so that's just sort of how I figured out what the format would be. And then when I got back to town, I just kind of was like, okay, you know, I'm not really a stand-up. So how can I do a monologue? And I just thought, well, if I do it like I'm recapping my week, then I could just sort of go by the week and say like, well, this is what I did Sunday, this is what I did Monday night, etc. So then I just sort of, you know, tried to use that as a guideline for my monologues. And then they became a little bit more like free associative, but by then I had already had like a format. And it was also just like free and easy enough. And I could self-publish and no one would come to me with like notes or anything. So it was a really great way to like figure out my voice and express myself for, I think I did it for like 4 or 5 years nonstop. Like I never missed a Friday. Like I remember coming into the city during the blackout, like the Hurricane Sandy blackout, and being like, and I walked into Manhattan from, I was staying with my boyfriends in Brooklyn at the time, and like I remember like walking up the 10 flights of stairs because my building's elevator wasn't working, and like getting my podcast equipment and going back to like Brooklyn to record it. I would never do that now. but at the time I was just, you know, very excited about this, you know, very committed, and I'm probably a little OCD about it too.
Well, I think that's why it was so popular, because I remember, Julie, when you were at our 2013 Rock It Like a Redhead event, people were coming up to me like, I am such a fan of her podcast. And I have to say, awesome. At that point, I knew what your podcast was, but I had never actually listened to any podcast before. And so I was like, you are super ahead of your time, because, you know, we're just doing it now and it's 20 years.
I know.
I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time when I'm like cleaning up or cooking or whatever. And I'm just so, you know, lucky to have had that forum to express myself with, because so much of that begat the story ideas on Difficult People. Like I wrote the pilot for Difficult People based on, there were like 3 or 4, you know, things that had happened in my life, you know, from real life that I discussed on the show that I kind of like drew from as far as coming up with like a story for the pilot episode. So it became like, the podcast became, you know, almost like this big sketchbook that I could return to when I wanted to like make something out of it, like a, you know, if the script is like a painting in that metaphor, I guess.
Right. And you know, everyone loved Difficult People, Julie. Stephanie and I have watched every episode. We love it so much.
So funny.
Thank you. I love it too, if I may say so myself.
It was just so well done, and I feel like it's going to be one of those episodes or one of those shows that is timeless, you know. And I know I saw it on your Instagram that people keep asking you when another season, and you're like, it's canceled, and they just don't want to take it. And so we wanted to know how it was like to create such an iconic show, you know, with like such a great co-star with Amy Poehler, and how was that experience?
Oh, it was the best. It was like winning the lottery. Like there was no bad part. Like the only bad part was the stress of like, you know, we have to get this done in like an insane amount of time. And you know, are we going to get another season? And just like production stress. But there was really nothing. I mean, I was just like the luckiest person in the world to be able to create this show with Amy's help and her like protection in that big sister kind of way. And I got to do it with a network that pretty much let us do whatever we wanted creatively. Like there wasn't a lot of back and forth about like, oh, that reference is too obscure, or this makes Billy and Julie seem not very likable, or there really weren't any notes like that. So we had the freedom to, you know, write whatever we wanted. And then, you know, just back to Amy, like Amy Poehler, everything you think that you know about her is like true, but like times a million as far as how great she is. Like people like, you know, project they're like, oh, I wish she was my big sister. And, you know, obviously with celebrity, there's like a certain amount of, you know, well, that's in your imagination or that's like her brand or whatever. But with Amy, like she's just completely the real deal. Like she totally is this wonderful, supportive, like hilarious person who's also very like, she's like a mama bear. She's really protective of her creators and her, like she was always on board to stand up for me if someone was like, I don't think that's funny, and she'd be like, I do, and then that would be the end of the conversation because like who's going to argue with her? So,
because like what she says goes, right?
Well, exactly, and it's also just like, well, who am I like to judge what's funny? Like Amy Poehler's probably a better judge, and I got that. People would give me the benefit of the doubt, and then also on top of that, like her notes, because she was so involved as a producer. Like there's a lot of producers that are kind of producers in name only, like they'll kind of put their name on something and just step back and just sort of collect the checks. Like she's not, she was involved in every step of the way, like every decision, even like micro decisions, like things about like casting, locations, like she was, not that casting is micro, but like even like small parts she would like weigh in on. And then every outline that we would hand to her before we'd hand to the network, like she would weigh in on, and then we would make changes before we would send it to Hulu. So she was just like a very, very involved producer creatively, and her contributions only made the show better. And she was also, I just like can't say enough good things about Amy Poehler. Like she was really the first person to, because I had written this spec script. Basically, a spec script is something that you write for free because you really want to make it. And I showed it to people. I showed it to her, and she really liked it. And it was really her idea to like make it about my friendship with Billy. Like I had kind of written it more like a Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of thing, where I was like Larry David, and he was like, I always knew that he was going to be my best friend on it. But she was like, if this show is about your guys' friendship, then you guys can be able to get away with anything because you love each other. And that's the heart of the show. And because people see that you love each other, you could be terrible in the world in other ways. But like, as Ian, absolutely fabulous, like seeing two characters that really do have this like familial attachment goes a really long way as far as a character, being likable. And then she also came up with the title for the show. So she really helped me develop, to take the script and make it into like a pitch for like a series.
That's just incredible.
Every step of the way she was there.
Yeah, we were thinking about difficult people, and we were talking about your red hair, and we were talking about all the, everything about you and what a timeless show it is. And you said this particular quote that I had read, and I loved it. And it said that your character said things other people didn't want to say because they were afraid of burning bridges, but that the two characters you created didn't have any bridges to burn. And I just love that, because I was like, that's just something that everyone should aspire to be, right? Like not even if you have red hair, but really just anyone should just aspire to just kind of just be themselves. And I think that was the beauty of the characters, right? Like they were just themselves, and who cares what anyone else thinks?
Absolutely. And then I also think, just creatively, like if you're trying to write something that's really special and really good and really, connect with people, then you owe it to yourself and to your work and to the people that you'd be connecting to audience-wise to be as uncomfortably truthful as you can. Because I think that that's sort of the secret, is not writing to what you think people want, and trying to protect yourself along the way, and almost like doing, damage control to your reputation and acting like a publicist. And it's more important that you kind of like put all of your cards on the table and just sort of show yourself as ugly and mean and however you really think that you are deep in your id. And the more honest you are, the more likely it is that people will actually, that will break through and make it unique, because it's you, and it's truthful. But on top of that, it will also just, there'll be like a nice sort of cathartic element of people watching it to sort of say, oh wow, like they said that and like nothing really terrible happened to them. Like maybe I should really, say what I feel or what I think. And the odds are, the more authentic you are, the more likely you are to be unique, and like the landscape of people.
Definitely.
Everybody's like, doing a show or trying to launch something. That's sort of the truest you can be to yourself, I think.
And I think like when a lot of people see a redhead on TV, I feel like automatically they're like, oh, Lucille Ball. I don't know why, but I've heard a lot of people like maybe with Deborah messing with Will and Grace. And I feel like I had read some reviews about Difficult People, and some people were making comments about your red hair. And there was just one, and it said, but real life Julie and TV Julie part ways in many respects, but the red hair and the mischief are all the same. And I love that.
Rapid fire.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, I wonder, if there was any influence from another redhead like Lucille Ball, or was it just truly authentic and you just have red hair? I was wondering if there was any kind of correlation with it.
I think there's always, like people project on you what they expect. And when you're a redhead, I think that there's always an element of like, people are going to say she's fiery or she's sassy or, the most annoying is when people are like, you must be a fire sign. And you're like, oh, why? Because fire is red too, you idiot. But then they're like, oh, you have a temper. And it's like, well, most women do.
Right.
Especially if you go around telling them what sign you think they are. But yeah, I do think there's a lot of like projections that are, made onto redheads. Some of them are true, just like some stereotypes are rooted in truth. But the other, part of that has to do with like just how important representation is. And that, I grew up seeing, whenever I'd see like a fellow redhead on TV, I'd be really excited and thinking like, oh my God, she's really funny or she's really pretty. Or I would just, when you see people that look like you on television, which is why, the conversation about diversity is so important, you have more of a connection to what you're watching. So, growing up, I was always obsessed with like Tina Louise on Gilligan's Island as Ginger in reruns. And I remember when like Julie Brown had her TV show on MTV, like Just Say Julie, and she was really cool and sexy and had like bright red hair, and she was doing like her own like wacko kind of sketch comedy style. I really connected to her. And as far as like the Lucy thing, I think I mean you just have to take it as a compliment, because you're like,
so.
Yeah, if I literally make like a fraction of what that woman had in terms of like money, success, people really did love her, I should be so lucky. So when people compare you, you just have to be like, oh yeah, no, I know. Totally. That was what I was going for.
So Adrienne and I were wondering, was there ever a conversation while or before launching Difficult People about not having red hair? Because we know a lot of celebrities, actresses that come about and, get a character for whether it's a TV show or a movie, that like Jessica Chastain wore a blonde wig on The Help we talked about earlier. Was there ever a conversation about not rocking red hair on the show, or was it kind of always like a no question, this is
like I'm gonna
my
be,
hair?
Yeah, I'm gonna be me.
There was never a question on Difficult People that like that's who I am and that's who the character is. But I will say, and I was very lucky because I had always written this, for myself to star in, and to be on camera was very like nerve-wracking because I'd never starred in a TV show before. I had, most of my TV experience was behind the camera as a writer. So I was nervous. I was especially nervous and ultimately relieved that no one ever told me I had to lose weight. Like that was kind of the thing that I was really anxious about. And it just never was a point of conversation.
That's amazing.
That's such a step forward with society.
Right.
Oh, no question. But I will say, from like, I did have this one experience with it was one of these like general meetings. People in show business love meetings because like, it's a way to spend their day, and then you get to like.
I love your realness. That's awesome.
And then go home. Yeah, exactly. So people take a lot of meetings where they just go in and they're like, "Hi, this is what I do," and they're like, "Okay, good to know. We'll keep you in mind. Have a nice life." And then they collect their, their paychecks and health insurance, and you go home trying to figure out how you're going to feed yourself. But I did go on this one general years and years ago with Bravo, and I was telling them, I might want to develop my podcast to be like a talk show at some point because I really like that form. I love like Graham Norton, and I like that panel kind of chat show form. And she was like, well, listen, would you be up for dyeing your hair? Because we have Kathy Griffin, and she has a talk show on our network.
Oh.
And I just remember being like,
Wow.
what? Are we up to this conversation yet? Because it seems to me that you wouldn't want to approach someone about changing their appearance until the check has cleared. Like until you have a strong commitment that you're like, no, we want to make a show with you.
Right.
Even then, I think it's a little, dicey or shitty or just, it's not the greatest thing to hear, especially when you just walk in off the street and you're like, this is part of who I am. Just like people who have curly hair or people who've always worn their hair really short. For some reason, when you're on camera, I think it's the more acceptable, like domain for people to weigh in on. But I will say, like, having left that general meeting with absolutely like no intention of ever seeing or speaking to these people again, I was a little appalled by that, like boundary wise.
Yeah, I remember when I was actually dating someone in high school and they asked me to dye my hair. And I was like, why would I do that? And I never talked to him again because I thought,
you're a loser.
that like, yeah, you're a loser.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be me. And why would I want to be with someone who really doesn't like me? I guess it's the same thing with you. Like, why would you want to do a show if you're not going to be you? That's not.
That's very bizarre because you're also dealing with someone that was attracted to you conditionally. Like, that they saw who you are.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
instead of celebrating who you are, they were like, I see what she could be. Like, I see the potential. I see the statue that could be carved out of that slab of stone. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a relationship where, two people who sort of unconditionally liked each other would deepen and grow as a couple. I guess that isn't happening anytime soon.
How about people you've dated? Do they always love your red hair?
I assume so because it's just such an important part of who I am. Like
Right.
I've never not had it. So it's to me, I just, and I have like the other side of it is like I've gone out with people and I found out that like all their exes have red hair too. So that's
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Like, oh, that's interesting.
They have a
little
thing for
turnaround and
redheads.
Marry a redhead. Yeah.
That kind of I don't know why
honestly,
I
like,
get grossed out.
you find that out and you're like, okay, cool. What can I say? We're irresistible. I'm not going to blame the guy.
Yeah. And what about growing up? Like, I know I feel the same way you do, Julie. I think Stephanie was a little different, but I just always had red hair. Like we both did, but I feel like it was just a part of me that I didn't even really recognize until people brought it up. But did you have a hard time growing up as a redhead, or was it pretty easy with your environment?
It was. I mean, it's always challenging because you're going to get attention, and I think
Right.
you're going to get attention from strangers, and people are going to just approach you and say things that are like not appropriate or just not socially like normal, and you kind of can't be incognito. I remember in college I got a C in photography, and one of the reasons was my professor was like, like when you're not here we notice because you have this bright red hair. And I was like, oh, that never occurred to me.
Gosh.
Like, oh, so if I'm going to cut classes, I should consider like a wig or a hat. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, that was really funny. I was like, oh, okay, got it. No, I deserve this C. I was never here. Yeah, growing up, I think it just has to do with how comfortable you are with unsolicited attention. And especially like, you're a little kid, like adults are going to come up to you and talk to your parent. Oh, she's cute. How old is she? Like, I think that's part of the course of being a kid. But on top of that, having red hair, like, I don't know, there's a lot of questions that aren't answerable, like rhetorical ones, like, where'd you get it? Or
Yeah.
is that your real color? And then you're like, yeah. And then you're like, is this conversation over? Do you have any follow-ups? So it depends on how, like, I think like anybody else, like, am I in the mood to have a conversation with a stranger on the street, whether or not they mean well? Or do I just want to like get to where I'm going without having to like be nice to someone that I don't know? And I also think, with girls too, there's so much that comes along with telling girls what they look like, like, wow, you have red hair, or you're tall, or you're short, and you don't know what to say. Like, you say thank you or whatever it is, but just the idea that being a girl, that your appearance is so important that people will just come up to you and comment on that is something that you get used to, but is never not weird, I guess, even when people mean well.
And do you love your red hair now? Do you feel like you just always love it? Because Julie, this is Adrienne, but I'm getting little white hairs. I'm like, am I alone?
Oh no. Well,
The
you're not alone.
plague.
I heard redheads go white quicker.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that's why.
Yeah, but then you could do the like amazing. You could rock the like Bonnie Raitt, witch streak. Like that's
Yeah.
You could.
That's
All
an
in the
amazing
front.
Yeah.
option. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, how many people in the hair coloring industry are used to hearing like, "Oh, I want to be a redhead now." Like they have the supplies. They can work with people like us that never had the choice and go, retroactively to like, "Oh, okay, we're trying to restore what you naturally have," as opposed to like, "Oh, this girl feels like looking like, Amy Adams this week." But I will say, yes, I totally love it. I've always liked it in as much as my relationship to myself has been positive. Like if I feel good about myself, that I like my hair. If I don't like myself, I don't like my hair. It's just a part of who I am, in the same way that you like your sense of humor or your face or your, like how good you are at things that you like to do. That's my attitude towards it. There was only one time when I was in high school and I decided to dye my hair, and I did this like really dark kind of almost like that cheesy 90s like burgundy, like that Feria kind of.
Wow, so you did that.
I did it in high school. It was a rinse out.
Oh, it was a rinse out. That's good.
And I did it because I was a teenager, and I was like, I'm going to experiment with who I'm not as well as who I am. And I also wanted to see like how much of myself was basically to see like if people would recognize me and people would sort of acknowledge me as myself, or if it would change me that much. And it was, as I look back, like I was kind of more depressed without it. I definitely feel like I wasn't quite, myself. And I do think there was like, I mean, I'm glad I did it because now I know what that's like, but I would never do it again. It's just not, it was more like playing a character than it was experimenting with like, what if I was just sort of more like, I fit in with more people. Maybe that's closer to how I want to live my life. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, This is Stephanie. I dyed my hair platinum blonde for over 7 years. So Adrienne and I I talk about it with her because when we look at photos, I just can't believe I did it. But it wasn't, now I look back and now red hair is so a part of who I am. I couldn't imagine, but hey.
Absolutely.
But hey.
Of all other hair colors, I do feel like platinum blondes are like sisters. Like I feel like when I see somebody who's a platinum blonde, I'm like, okay, it's like I feel like we're both very noticeable. We have that sort of like, pin up category, like there's not people don't go platinum blonde if they don't want to be like noticed, and it's definitely like a very bold, fashion choice. So whenever I see a platinum blonde, I do feel like, okay, you're like an honorary redhead.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So Adrienne and I, we wanted to talk about some of the redhead beauty tips that you provided, that we were so happy that you were involved in the How to Be a Redhead beauty book. So we wanted to touch upon each one. So the first thing that
they're all hilarious.
They are.
Well, there's 3 of them. Yeah.
So the first one is, be careful with your eyebrows and please don't go maroon in hope of enhancing what God gave you. Nobody looks good in maroon, especially the members of Maroon 5. So I guess, okay, eyebrows. Did you ever have those moments, maybe when you were younger, when they were very, very thin? I mean, Adrienne and I, we got our eyebrows done when we were young, and they were very thin. Like we look at photos and you can't even see them. They're we totally butchered that. So do you have any stories or maybe products that you love or anything to do with brows?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, the first thing I have is regret. Because I was a teenager in the 90s, and it was very trendy to do that like Drew Barrymore, like that like 1930s really, really thin brow. And oh boy, and like wear like a daisy behind your ear or whatever you were trying to go for. But I did that, and they never really grew back. So I kind of have these like sperm looking eyebrows. And then on top of that, yeah, as you are exposed to the sun, like they get lighter and lighter, and you're in this like kind of strawberry blonde territory with your lashes as well as your brows. So I have begun, like, I dye my lashes once a month at a place, in New York City called Eyelure. What is it? EYELURE. And they do all like eye related things. So they do like lash extensions if you're into that too. But I get my lashes darkened because I feel a lot better when I'm wearing mascara. Like I feel like it kind of
I know what you're saying.
The color's right at the root, which I like about tints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the color's right at the root. And like I said, like I like sort of grounding my face because I have dark eyes too. So like I like when my mascara's on and my brows are dark and I have my eyeliner on because I feel like it makes my hair look more red than like that sort of like strawberry blonde that just kind of washes my complexion out personally. So I try to like go darker with that stuff. And then I also swear by this eyebrow pencil from MAC, called Redhead.
It's that one's Redhead. Awesome.
That is the best one, right?
And it is, oh my God. I mean, like, how could you not, first of all, buy something called Redhead? Because when you see that, you're like, okay, now I don't need to like accommodate the like between the dirty blondes and the light browns. Like, I just know that I'm having a conversation with somebody that knows what that color is.
Yeah.
And so that I swear by. And then I also, what else have I been using lately that I really like a lot? Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I had this one experience where I was considering doing microblading.
Oh yeah,
for my brows.
We were thinking about doing it.
Stephanie talked me out of it. She said,
I didn't talk you out of it. I just said that sometimes
me out of it too.
Sometimes they look a little harsh.
Well, that's what I was worried about. Well, a couple things is because they are semi-permanent. When someone does it and you don't like it, you can't hide because they're your eyebrows are in the middle of your face.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, well, I went to this. Actually, I think I actually went on your guys' website because I was like, okay, these are the only women I'm going to trust if I'm going to do something related to brows, because redheads have such unique, coloring with it, and they have such unique like style too. Like the part of the brow that's like closer to the nose, like I like to sort of like almost do like an ombre, like kind of disappear and not have like a thick, like a very hard line that starts the eyebrow with like a right angle or whatever. Like I don't like that. So I found this place, and first they were like, oh, okay, we're going to do this. And I was like, no, I'm here for you to demonstrate what you would do. And I were to hire you to do it. And they're like, oh, okay. So they put me on this table, and then they're like, we only have black. And I was like, okay. So they took a pencil, and then they gave me like these uneven, like they're like, but you can't picture them black. And I was like, but you use black, so I can't not picture them black when I looked in the mirror. And then I was thinking, like, I can't, these people have no idea
what doing.
Redheads need. Yeah, and then also that I asked them for photos of what it looks like when they're healing, because then they're like, they turn to scabs, or they like become that nice, like little tattoo looking stained line. And they were like, oh, we don't have any photos of what, because there's like 2 weeks where you have like eyebrow shaped scabs on your face. Which,
and
again,
do you have sensitive skin?
Hide. Yeah.
I do.
I think all redheads do, right?
Yeah. It's like thinner skin, so that I feel like it would be like 3 weeks of healing for me.
I have to say, I would never get personally eyebrow blading, and yeah, I did talk Adrienne out of it. A few of the articles that we have done where our followers of ours have done their before and afters, it looks amazing. So I do think maybe if we
find the right
we all
person.
went to the right place. If you find the right person you really trust who knows how they're doing redhead eyebrows. But I agree with you. I like a more natural look on my brows with like more like feather airy in the beginning. I don't know how to describe
it. Light. Because if you're dealing with like the blonde palette, like you're gonna have to like disappear into the color of your skin at a certain point. Otherwise, it's gonna look like somebody took a Sharpie and drew like 2 brackets.
And that's how I feel That's how I think when I look at people who have gotten it done. It looks like that. It's
Julie, that is really funny though, like having black eyebrows.
Oh my God. I saw that in the mirror and I was like, I literally could not get out of there soon enough. They're like, can we give you another makeup wipe? I'm like, I'll wash it off in the cab. Like, just don't touch me. I can't even tell you how. And then I told my friend Danielle and she was like, what is this? And I was like, well, they take a blade and they and she's like, what?
It sounds worse than it is.
I know, but then she also was like, so you're telling me, when she repeated it back to me, I was like, no, you're right. It's not the best way of spending my time and money.
It's kind of like, I don't know if have you ever gotten a chemical peel?
No, because I'm scared because of my skin being so sensitive. I worry that like by the time I recover from it, I won't be able to tell if it's better than it was if I went in, because it'll just be it'll take so long to recover from it. But I know that people who have done it say that the results are fabulous.
Yeah, and it reminded me of, so we went to go get it done, Adrienne and I, and then we were with our parents the next day, and I was peeling like crazy.
It looked like cheese.
It did.
Coming off.
It looked like grated cheese. And I knew that it was just going to be a few days of the peeling. And our dad, he has a thick Boston accent, looks at me and goes, come on, what'd you do with your face? And when I was describing the procedure, just like how you were describing the microblading to your friend Danielle, he looked at us like, you put chemicals on your face?
Why?
And he was like, come on. And I was like, no, Dad, that's not what's happening. And
no, you need that reality check, though. You need people like your dad who's going to be like, wait, well, just tell me what you did and why.
Yeah.
Because you should be sometimes like in a place where like, oh, now that I hear it out loud, maybe I should have just like gone to the gym that day or like gone to the library, bought a book or
something more productive.
I know. Oh my God.
But no, that makes me really, I get really anxious about stuff that's like permanent or stuff that, or semi-permanent or stuff that gets worse before it gets better. Like that's something that I get very anxious about beauty procedure wise, is like, how long do I have to hide? How long do I need to, like, because there's always like, well, the first 2 weeks it'll be bad, and then the second 2 weeks you'll be back to where you were, and then after that you'll be good. And you're like, okay, let me just get my calendar out and repeat that to me so I can schedule all social engagements accordingly.
Yeah, right. And that's why I feel the same way with the chemical peel, because I really have to hide for maybe 4 or 5 days, or else people think I have a problem. Like my
skin is dry skin,
falling off.
They'll think that we're having an allergic reaction or a bee stung us or we have a sunburn or something.
Yeah, like I was peeling so bad my husband had to go in the other room and eat dinner because he said, I can't look at you.
But you were happy with the results?
Yeah, the results are great. And now I get it done.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I get it done every 6 weeks.
And does it get easier? Like, does your skin react less to it now that it's sort of used to it, or not really?
Stephanie has a much better.
I'm not as sensitive as you.
I am so sensitive. Chemical peels are really good for me, but I really can only do them like 3 or 4 times a year. Stephanie's skin just isn't like mine. I don't know.
She's probably more used to it now, or is it the same every time?
I don't know. I think every time it's kind of different, but it depends. It depends on like your hormones or like what you're doing or the sun.
If you have any sun.
Yeah. So anyway, you have the next 2 are kind of joint, but it reminded me a little bit of when I first saw like the advertisement for difficult people. This is what you said. You said you're never going to look boring. Everyone will remember you. And I feel like that's something. Don't you feel like that? Like that was like a big, like when you saw like the first maybe like advertisement for difficult people, like that was my first thing. Like this is not going to be a boring show. Like this is going to be good. Yeah.
Look, I think that is such an incredible compliment, even though people are like, well, that's not always good. But I really think that, especially now in the like enormous landscape of television where there are 1,000 shows, there really are. Like you talk to people and they're like, oh, I just started watching Lodge 49. And you're like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of that in my life.
It's like our mom is obsessed with Netflix. Our dad calls her Horizontal Jan because he always sees her laying down on the couch. But she knows every Netflix show, movie, and she'll do the same thing. She'll say to us, girls, did you watch the show? And 99% of the time, we have not seen it nor heard of it.
Yeah.
So.
Because it's just like people don't have. It's not like when you were in, junior high, you're like, oh, did you see 90210 last night? It's like, no, like it's nothing like that. Some people don't have Netflix or Hulu or there's just there's no one like has like a common. It's not like something that we've all seen in the way that like I guess sports games or award shows sometimes can be that, but the point being that like in that kind of really crowded landscape, anything that isn't boring is good. Like that's kind of also, as someone that watches as much TV and reads as much and sees as many movies as I do, the cardinal sin is just boring me. Like that in itself I think is almost worse than something that like offends me. Like oftentimes it just offends me because you had this opportunity to like grab my attention and you blew it, or things are too slow, or you just don't connect with the characters. So even if someone has like a strong reaction in the opposite direction, as long as you're not boring, I feel like you're already ahead of the game in so many ways. I think not being boring is so underrated.
Right. It's like I feel like when you're a kid, you maybe don't love your red hair, and then when you get older, people will always remember you. And I feel like before How to Be a Redhead, when I would have these random jobs, I was the worst employee, but I would always get these jobs, and I feel like they hired me because I was just memorable. Like maybe like they just were like, oh yeah, that girl with the red hair. Oh yeah. And so I feel like it was a huge advantage, even to this day. Like it's such a huge advantage wherever I go. So
absolutely. And then alternately, you have to run into people at parties and they're like, hi, and you're like, who the hell are you? I have absolutely no idea who you are.
And they really know you.
They remember your red hair.
They certainly do. That's definitely something that you have going for you in certain ways.
And your third tip was embrace being different always. Come on, red is beautiful, and deep down you know it too. So that ties in everything that we were saying about, how it is to be a redhead and the lifestyle. And
so I
just can't believe that anyone deep down doesn't know that they're gorgeous with this hair. Like it's just, I know that sometimes it can be a little, you feel a little restricted by the way people see you or how your identity is defined by it or whatever your experience was when you're a little kid or not wanting to stand out all the time. But at the end of the day, like I have to believe that redheads know how cool it is to be different and how cool it is to be special. And maybe it's not always the best thing, but ultimately I just can't imagine being anything else.
I know. And Julie, before we go, I feel like there's one topic we have to talk about, which is
Basset Hounds.
Oh my God. I can't wait to talk about Basset Hounds.
Where did your obsession start?
What's his name? Eddie?
Jack.
Oh, my dogs, Jack and Sam.
I was so close.
Eddie is a really good name.
Eddie might be the next Basset Hound name.
So on our show, we had 4 Bassets all together.
I know.
We had 2. Yeah, we had Martha and Otis were the dogs in the first 2 seasons, and then for reasons having nothing to do with Martha nor Otis. But we went with a different animal handler for season 3, and he brought his own dog. So we had Tia, like the Latin name for aunt. We had Tia and Eddie as the 2
great
dogs
names.
in the fight. Oh, they were great dogs. Tia was like, I love like older gals. Like Tia was like a little senior. Like she had some white in her. She had some more white in her face. Eddie was a little like, what are we doing? And where can I smell things? But he was ultimately very professional as well.
Were they mischievous on set? Because Adrienne's 2 dogs are very mischievous.
They're not good dogs. Like I'll tell you right now, I love them. But when people are like looking for like, are they obedient? Are they like?
No, they're not.
No, they're not. But then people are like, oh, so they're dumb. And you're like, it's not that they're dumb. They just don't want to do tricks that you want them to do when they don't want to do them.
Yeah, they don't want to listen to anyone.
No,
they really don't. They're not interested. Because also the other thing about Bassets, like the second animal handler we worked with had the greatest quote about them, and that was when I knew I was going to hire him because I was like, oh, you totally get it. He's like, they are a dog attached to a nose.
They are.
So
I love that.
You're really hiring the nose first. Like you have a nose before you have a dog. That dog is Like everything about that dog is built to accommodate this amazing nose. Like his ears are long so he can like keep the scent closer to his face. His wrinkles exist so he can hold the scent closer to him. He's low to the ground so he can track the scent. It's like that dog is all nose, and if you're telling him look over here and he smells something that's like stinky cheese or some sort of old cardboard that has like information that somebody may have peed on it 3 years ago, like we don't know, but you have to approach working with them knowing that they have their mind wherever their nose is, and that's something you need to kind of work with. So the dogs on the show didn't have a lot of stage direction.
They just did whatever they wanted.
Yeah. Mostly it was like, okay, it would be great if they could come to me in this shot. And sometimes that would happen, and sometimes it would take a few takes. But yeah, like by no means were we giving them anything like they would give like, you know, a Jack Russell or a Lab or like other breeds that, you know, will learn all kinds of tricks. Like these dogs were really, they knew they were there because they were beautiful. They were like, we're models first, actors second.
They really are so beautiful with their long velvet ears. I love them so much and all this slobber.
I think they're the most beautiful dogs, and I can't be in a bad mood when I see one walking because the way they move and just how they like they move their weight like back and forth is so funny.
How did you met Dean the Basset?
How was that?
It was amazing. It was probably the best day of my life.
Oh my God. I saw you guys took a picture on a New York City bench, right?
We had a really good, there were sparks. We had a good first date. I'm excited to see what becomes of it. Dean, for those who don't know, is
an Instagram star.
Very, very good looking Instagram celebrity. And he lives in Toronto with the two nicest people you've ever met. He lives with this couple, and the Carly, I think they're married. The wife, never grew up with Bassets, but her husband did. So he had one as a little boy, and so they decided they were going to get that breed. And of course, they are completely in love. And the videos they make with Dean the Basset Hound,
they're so well done,
funny,
so well done.
They're the best things on TV in a lot of ways. Whenever there's a new episode, I'm like, everybody shut up.
Me too. We're the exact same way. We're like, oh my God, how did they come up with all this dialogue? And he's such a good dog, though.
And he has great outfits.
The outfits are the best parts of those shorts that they make, and especially the one where they dress him up like a Mountie, like a Canadian Mountie. Yeah. There's one I think they put out on Canada Day that was like the mystery of like someone stole his maple syrup.
I saw that.
Dumbest thing, and
it's so funny.
I've probably watched it more times. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen Citizen Kane from beginning to end, but I've seen that video more times than I care to admit. It's so important.
And, oh my God, and he's on greeting cards.
He is?
He's on greeting cards at World Market and CVS. Like he's really
beautiful.
Up there.
I know. He really is like probably the best looking Basset. Like I feel like he's a great ambassador, so to speak, for the breed because people see him and they're like, "Oh my God, like is that a Basset Hound?" And you're like, "Yeah, they all look like that. Get one now."
Are you gonna get one, Julie?
I wouldn't. My cat wouldn't be happy about it.
Oh, true.
And you know, when I adopted him, I was like, his happiness is my priority, and I'm just gonna make sure. Anytime you adopt a shelter animal. Or a rescue, like I feel like part of the fun, the best part of having an animal that came from like circumstances that were not so good is spoiling them rotten and treating them. You get to pretend that you're Daddy Warbucks and they're Annie, and you're like everything is yours now. You're the prince, and
you're gonna have the best life. Yeah,
and you like hold them and you're like, I'm gonna take care of you forever, and you're so dear to me, and then then you realize that. It's 3 a.m. and you should really be going to bed instead of talking to your cat all the time. But
God,
he's the prince. And then, you know, in case if I move to like a bigger place, it might be a conversation. You know, if he isn't great around other animals, Jimmy, like he gets a little aggressive.
Jimmy.
So I
love that name.
I know, Jimmy Jazz. He came with the name Jimmy. When I adopted him, his name was already Jimmy. I added Jazz because he's so jazzy looking.
Oh.
Yeah. He's a good little guy.
Well, Julie, the Huffington Post, I don't know when they wrote this, but they said that you're one of the comedians that could possibly follow Conan on TBS. So before we go, what's next for you?
I'm working on, well, that's very flattering. Does Conan still have his show? I think he's like changing it to half an hour.
He is. It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like Conan, but I have to say, like, watching those talk shows is just something that I kind of like don't do anymore. Like, I guess I watch clips the next day when they're worthwhile.
We do too.
But,
Yeah.
But isn't that funny that was like a few years ago and just things changed so quickly?
Everything's so digital. Yeah.
Yeah. And I listen to podcasts for interviews, honestly. I think now that I think about it, more than I did when that stuff came out. But anyway, that's just to say I have 2 TV shows that are in development right now at 2 different networks.
That's so awesome.
It's exciting. I really hope, this TV development is tough because it takes a really long time to, they at first, and the same thing with difficult people. Like, I had already written that script, so we had pitched it, and then when people were interested, then we had a little bit of money to make a pilot, and then they didn't like the pilot, so we took the pilot to Hulu, and then Hulu picked it. So there's all these steps, and it can take years. So I'm being as patient as I can be while these things sort of, land, and hopefully people, take the next step with them. But beyond that, I would love to. I'm sort of like tinkering around on a play, and I would love to write another book. I'm just not exactly sure what the concept of it or the title would be, but I do miss writing like nonfiction, first person, like funny essays. So I would love to do more of that.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you're a redhead, and you're never boring, so you always stand out.
You have a lot of stories.
I think you guys are doing such an amazing thing for the community because, and this is something, not to name drop, but if I'm going to drop names, they're only going to be redhead royalty. And Ms. Julianne Moore, Oscar winner Julianne Moore, told me, who's, by the way, as far as like celebrities are concerned, like nobody's cooler, no one's nicer,
I can only
funnier,
imagine.
smarter. She's the best. She's the coolest chick. But she told me that every time she sees a redhead on the street, she smiles at them because she's like, it's a secret society.
It really is.
And you have to be, you have to have sisterhood, and you have to like look out for your fellow reds. And I'm just really, it's nice to be, it's a good club to be a member of. I'll put it that way.
It totally is.
It's the best club. If I saw Julianne Moore on the street, though, I think I'd have to go and give her a hug. And
she will return it because of your fabulous hair, and also you tell her that you know me, so she doesn't call the police.
Okay, deal.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
We hope you have a great day.
It was a pleasure talking to you as always. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks again.
Okay,
All right,
bye. How great is she?
Oh my God, she's amazing.
I know. I feel like she's literally a sister, Stephanie, like a third of us.
Right. And she's so empowering.
She's so empowering. And that's why I love How to Be a Redhead so much, because I feel like it gives confidence to so many people. But for people like her, obviously everyone can use confidence, but she just emulates it. And I feel like you can just hear it in her voice. And I'm so excited for her TV shows that I know that they're going to get, rave reviews like everything else she's done, literally.
Right. And
everything.
I think it's important because she relates to a lot of girls and women, women in general, and especially aspiring, fumbling on my word, actresses.
Aspiring, yeah.
And even if you're not trying to be an actress or a comedian, she really teaches me personally about just being who you are, don't give an F, and just rock it. And I look up to her. She was awesome.
I know. And with this whole theme of, red hair is more than a color, it's a lifestyle. I think she was the perfect guest to be on. And I just, I'm ever more appreciative of my hair, like after this podcast, because I'm like, wow, it is such a community. Because when we're writing stuff online or reading what writers have written, or I see things on Instagram, it's kind of just, on your phone, on your computer. But when you're hearing it and you're talking with someone, I feel like,
you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I have red hair.
Yeah.
And it's cool to know if we were to see Julianne Moore, we could give her a big hug.
I know. As long as we say we know Julie.
So she doesn't call the police. I love that. But yeah, she is a shining redhead star.
I know. Well, we have so many more topics to cover. It's unbelievable. I feel like this is only the surface. So we look forward to talking to all you beautiful redheads on a future episode of the H2 Bar podcast.
And make sure, if you haven't already done so, subscribe and follow us on social media. It's How to Be a Redhead and rock it like a redhead.